My name is Ibungo Choubi, the Secretary General of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum. Just last week, we had a meeting of the Executive Committee of the Forum in our headquarters in Guwahati. We had a couple of resolutions which we will be implementing in due course of time. Every year, we celebrate the International Day of the World Indigenous People. This year, on August 9, 2026, the Nagaland chapter of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum will be hosting this very celebration of the World Indigenous Day. It will be held at the town hall in the afternoon, being Sunday. It will be at 2 p.m. We would like to appeal to all the CSOs, public leaders, and particularly the youth of Nagaland to be a part of the very function being organized by the Nagaland Indigenous Peoples Forum, the chapter of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum. This year, the theme of the World Indigenous Peoples celebration is honoring indigenous midwives, safeguarding life and well-being of the indigenous people. It encompasses a long chain of responsibilities of the state government, the countries, which is a part of the United Nations. Well-being, safeguarding the well-being of every child is the objective, is a very theme this year, which means providing all basic necessary health and psychological aspect of every child, every person who is taking care of a person being born. In the last executive meeting of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, Guwahati meeting hoise, Northeast Indigenous People Forum executive meeting. Ekta important resolution loise, communal harmony. Moikhan Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, for the last some years, we have been propagating harmonial coexistence of all the communities in the Northeast. Kile 7 states border busy dispute dakhe. Edo border dispute thakapara, violence is a part of any kind of a dispute. Edubra Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum for the last some years, Foothill Drama Festival organized kori thakise. People to people contact, people to people interaction. Moikhan objective to people contact thakile, violence, conflict, all of kam hoi jabo. Edubra Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum focus kori ase to programs like Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, sab border te milai kine, dosti kore kine, event banai kine, dangor traditional indigenous festival kore kine, people to people contact thakile, violence to olop kam ho jabo. Aru border dispute to state and central responsibility ase. The central government, the union government and state government, taikhan laga responsibility ase will be, as the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, we propagate that there should be minimum human tragedy. Kile to manukhan to sab indigenous people ase. That is why we have initiated the Foothill Drama Festival in many bordering areas for the last some years. Aru ekta important kotha to Northeast iman lamba international boundary ase. Right from Arunachal to Manipur to Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, Assam. Iman lamba international border to. Say for example, we have Manipur has about 390 kilometer international boundary with Myanmar. Arunachal also, Tripura also. Systematic influx of illegal population from neighboring countries, particularly Bangladesh and Myanmar. Systematic infiltration is creating a change in demographic profile of the states in northeastern region. Ito ekta dangor kotha or ekto dangor concern ase. Ekta political will, commitment, or the system should be made strong enough to check and counter before tragic events happen in our region. Ekta important kotha to we would like to congratulate, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Honorable MLA from Nagaland, Mr. Azo Nenyu. Tai Nagaland Assembly te ekta private bill introduce korise to start an Indigenous Affairs Department in Nagaland. Health Department, Education Department, Electricity Department, ineka ekta Indigenous Affairs Department kholile, we will be able to have a clear vision of how we should work for the indigenous people. It was well appreciated in all the states of the northeastern region. Or moi concept bhavna kori ase Mr. Azo Ninu laga speech or tai laga initiative to Manipur, Mizoram, Arunachal, Tripura, Assam sab follow koribo. Or Nagaland chapter laga sub representative Azo Nenyu, Honorable CM, sub MLA Khan bhi balpura receive korise itu concept to have one Indigenous Affairs Department or Directorate. It was one of the declarations, one of the points, resolutions of the Jokai Declaration, which was held in Assam. When we had the national conference, the regional conference in Jokai, one of the most important declarations was to initiate and work together to strive for opening an Indigenous Affairs Department in all the states to look into the matter, the concerns of Indigenous affairs. Mulaga Bhamna Teto 9th August, World Indigenous Day. Mr. Azo Nenyo will be a part of the celebration. I think media will be happy enough to share and get more information of what is the current situation of the initiative or the private bill that he had put up some months ago in the Nagaland Assembly. After his speech, we did see that almost all the majority of the honorable members of the Nagaland Assembly endorsed his philosophy of initiating and starting an Indigenous Affairs Department in Nagaland. Nagaland will be a leader in that perspective to begin with the very first step of starting the Indigenous affairs in the entire country, in fact, which of course is paramount for the northeastern states. Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum on behalf and its Nagaland chapter would like to thank each and every one of you who will be viewing this very short interview to kindly encourage all the CSOs, all the students' bodies, and particularly the youth organizations of all the tribes of Nagaland. I believe Nagaland has over 16 recognized tribes. Our advisor, Mr. Kyoto Su, is the Vice Chairman of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, and advisor of the Nagaland chapter. Tai sub CSO contact koriase. Or problem to the problem is with the present generation. However, the actual problem will be faced by the next generations to come. Right information debule or future kinika demographic profile protect koribole ajikali youth laga involvement is important ase. Schools, colleges and universities. एक Ekta Indigenous Affairs Department, if there is one, it will honor the responsibility of imparting the significance of this very department. Thereby, all the youth organizations of Nagaland, of all the communities, tribes, particularly 16 tribes, will be enlightened as to how we foresee our future and how they foresee their future. আৰু একটা কথা ক'ব, North East Indigenous Peoples Forum development, progressive activities laga anti নয়। মই খান কোৱাটো every developmental project, central or state, indigenous people stakeholder হ'ব লাগে। We don't want to be, as I had earlier mentioned also in earlier press gatherings, we would not like our children to be carriers of the developments in this very region. The indigenous peoples should be a stakeholder in every single developmental project. We should be a stakeholder, we should be a key partner, rather than being simple manual levers. This is what we are seeing today. All the major projects that is coming into the northeastern regions, it comes in the form of huge consignments or huge contracts that our contractors, our indigenous people, are not qualified and cannot bid. Therefore, we very strongly appeal to all the chief ministers of all the states to ensure that the indigenous people should be a stakeholder in the development, stakeholder in every single project that comes. Connectivity, reaching out to every single community should be the priority of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum. Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, or Nagaland chapter, Nagaland Indigenous Peoples Forum, Bhavna Koryase, the youth forum, particularly young people of all the communities, World Indigenous Day 9 August participate koribole. Itu bhavna understand koribole kile future to taikhan laga ase. We have to have a very clear path of understanding what is the future of our new younger generation. We have to protect the very rights of all the indigenous people. We want to ensure that the younger generations of the entire northeastern region is protected by its own respective states, by understanding, by foreseeing the kind of demographic profile that is being inflicted not only by the influx of people from across the border from Myanmar or Bangladesh, however, along the entire workforce from the entire country. If at all our political leaders are conscious, we would like to appeal, the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum would like to appeal to all the political leaders, which we are also trying to reach out, and we have been trying to reach out to all the political leaders in all the states through its all state chapters to kindly ensure that there is one indigenous department in every single government. This is our appeal. We are so fortunate that Nagaland government has initiated, and one of the key issues that we would be discussing in the very coming executive committee meeting of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum just after the World Indigenous Day celebration, we also would be focusing on how we would like our youth to be informed. We would like our youth to take informed decisions in terms of participation, in terms of being conscious of how political challenges will be meeting them when they grow up. I would like to take questions.
Yes, sir. Right now, while we were doing this interview, you just mentioned about political harmony, this indigenous people's harmony.
Communal harmony.
Communal harmony. basing on, I think it's 3 years now, if I'm not mistaken, in Manipur, the situation right now. So what, well, was there any steps taken up by Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, or are there any plans to take up, because the violence is still going on even yesterday, where every day we can see it's not coming down, but it's going more and more violence.
As I had already stated in my earlier discussions with the media, we are an open forum. Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum comprises people from different walks of life, and every person has his or her opinion on what is happening in many parts of the country. For me, as a person and as a member of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, I had already stated that it is the responsibility of the state government and the union government to ensure the safety and security of every single citizen. In my personal opinion, I had expressed that the first responsibility of a government is to ensure the protection, the safety of life and property of every citizen. And I had also given a very short statement earlier that in the entire state of Manipur, the people and the security personnel ratio is beyond what we can understand. The number of security personnel and the people, the ratio, I don't understand why the security personnel, both state and central, could not contain violence. Of course, the responsibility lies with the Union Home Minister and the state Home Ministers. It is a tragedy that the life and property of common citizens could not be protected by both the government, state, and the central. I think it will be one of the darkest chapters of the history of this very country that such a thing of such a magnitude has happened in Manipur. And since I am from Manipur, whenever I speak, not representing the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum or as an individual, people tend to look at me as an individual belonging to a community. However, from the media's perspective, since I am also in the media, I am a journalist by profession and I am the Secretary General of the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, we also have our own privilege and our rights to air our grievances. If you look at Manipur, there are two divisions of the central forces in the format of a 57 Mountain Division and the IGAR South, which is headed by a Major General. A division is headed by a Major General, and you can imagine that every division has 3 to 4 sectors, which is under a brigadier. Every sector has 3 to 4 battalions. So one can imagine when you have 2 divisions, besides you have the CRPF, you have the BSF, you have the IRB, and you have the Manipur local police. In the earlier years, you take it 15 years ago, 10 years before, the Manipur police could handle law and order so efficiently, and why the central forces had failed in this very episode leaves behind one question as to the efficiency of the security personnel or the lack of commitment of political leaders or lack of acumen of understanding or the lack of a will to resolve the crisis. I think it is not the political acumen, it is not the wisdom. However, we feel that there is a lack of a political will to contain the crisis. History will tell scholars will tell, academics will tell later the reasons why it failed. And we also continue to say that it could have been nipped in the bud when it started. And it happened continuously, and it is since 2003, 23 May, so many years. The Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum, as you asked, we had reached out through our own resources, through our own human resources and connectivity, at least to contain, at least to ensure that there is minimum violence. And we are an open forum. However, in that situation of what was happening, when even the security personnel could not go, it was one of the most difficult tasks, one of the most difficult endeavors of the Northeast Indigenous peoples and its volunteers to reach out to people from different states. When our members from different states, they came in, there were obstacles, there were worries, there were concerns, and that was the reality of the situation in Manipur. Of course, you cannot say that such a thing will not happen in other states later on. This is a living classroom of how our political leaders, the security personnel, and the state government and the union government should work together to ensure that property and life of every single citizen is the first priority of an administration. This had literally failed.
So one last question. You was, regarding development, you said that the indigenous people should be the stakeholders. So regarding projects and all, when they come to notice, as you have mentioned, so can you please elaborate a bit on that?
One of our serious concerns is the mega projects coming into the entire northeastern region, whether it is in terms of health or education or power, irrigation. We come to know through the government in all the states that there are many mega projects being undertaken in many states. How many beneficiaries or shareholders or stakeholders of that particular respective state take part in that developmental project is one big question today. We have had interactions with many private companies in the entire region, and particularly in Assam also. Can I give a small example of a long road construction or a mega construction of a university or a particular hospital or anything that might come up in the entire Northeast, and the project is also of a huge amount. Thereby, it will require a particular qualification for a particular person or a company to apply. In that process, it is very difficult for a local entrepreneur to apply because they might not be eligible for that. When you have a small railway station or you have a project coming up, it was given to us to be aired through our own opinion. When you have a house, when you construct a house, you have to build a wall. You have to build the entire compound. When the whole compound, when the whole compact project comes in, it should be met in such a manner that at least our local entrepreneurs should be capable of bidding for that program, for that very project. This is one of the simple examples that I'm mentioning so that our viewers will understand. At the same time, it is not, we are not talking of being anti-developmental or anti, which we are being trying to be classified. And we would be repeating very off and on in every single meetings of ours that the change in demographic profile will lead to political decisions and imbalance in decision making. As we have noticed in Tripura, the original Tripuri is a minority in Tripura. What you have seen in Assam is also a clear example how the students' movement began, because the entire influx of foreigners from Bangladesh, which I still is a continuous process. If the entire boundary is fenced, there will be another mechanism for them to infiltrate, because their objective is to infiltrate. Thereby, the Northeast Indigenous Peoples Forum had urged all the state governments to strengthen their own mechanism rather than waiting for a law or an act from the central government. We had urged all the political leaders to strengthen and make a mechanism thereby to check such infiltrations, which is coming in a planned manner, which is bound to affect, which is bound to change the demographic profile, which would deprive economic opportunities, political opportunities, and every aspect. And that is why we urge all the youth of this very region to be very conscious. And ultimately, opening an Indigenous Affairs Department would help, would be a catalyst to this very cause of our mission to ensure that the safety and security of the indigenous people are ensured.